Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hope you are maintaining a good immunity and keeping yourself healthy and safe during this pandemic. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar, Building Home That Lasts, powered by Dr. Fixit. We are humbled to see such a fabulous response to this webinar. And I thank you all for taking out your valuable time for being part of this initiative. My name is Indrajit Sahuji. I head the construction and design vertical for ITP in India, and I'll be your host for today. I hope the audio and video are clear.
Yeah.
If any issues with the communication, do let us know through the chat box. Specifically the audience, if you have any issues with the audio video, you please let us know. Our technical team will get in touch with you and try to sort it ASAP. Let me start with a brief introduction about ITP. ITP Media Group is one of the largest foreign media companies in India. The group is headquartered out of Dubai and now publishes more than 100 weekly and monthly magazines and has a wide portfolio of market-leading digital and event properties. Some of our global titles includes magazines like Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, Time Out, Cosmopolitan, Grazia, Construction Week, Architect and Interiors India, and more similar prominent titles across industry verticals. In India, we have 7 titles, including Construction Week. Construction Week is one of the largest circulated construction magazines globally with presence across geographies. We have editions in English, Arabic, and recently we have launched our Hindi edition to cater to a larger Hindi-loving audience. Let me come back to today's webinar. Today we are going to discuss on the topic Building Home That Lasts. Home has an emotional appeal for all of us. The Indian mindsets prefer to believe that a home is most expensive asset they have. People save a lifetime to buy one, and in such a scenario, a home that gives any grief can turn into a nightmare. When we buy or build a home, we hope it will last for generations. It's one of the asset classes that is passed down to generations and is inherited. However, today, more often than not, maintenance and repair features prominently even in new buildings and for multiple reasons. Today, we have the experts with us and a collective wisdom of more than 400 plus years on the panel, if I may safely say so. Let's hear it from them, as in what do builders need to do to ensure the buyers do not face such trials? How can modern technology aid in building better homes? I have heard from a very prominent architect saying that in today's COVID times, home is our most effective vaccines against corona till the time scientific community comes out with actual vaccine. So more reasons to make it safe and secure. With diverse climatic conditions in India, how design and technology plays a role in longevity of a structure. How can we weatherproof our abode? And many more questions that the audience have already asked us to figure out from the eminent panelists. It's time to deliberate, discuss, and arrive at a solution to these issues. We want this session to be interactive and engaging, and we look forward to learn from our audience as well. For the audience, we are going to screen a poll during the session. The poll will be live on the screen for a minute. Request each one of you to cast your votes. Results of the poll will be shared in due course. In case if you have any questions during the course of the session, please feel free to ask them by using the question tab. We have a Q&A session towards the end of the segment where these questions will be answered. Please mention which speaker are these questions addressed to. We may take few live questions as well. You may do so by raising the hand icon. My team and I are looking forward to all questions and will try to answer as many as possible. Now, without any further delay, let me introduce the legendary panel to you. I'd request the panelists to wave at the audience, starting with Mr. Sanjay Bahadur, Group CEO, CC Pidilite Industries. Architect Ravindra Kumar, Principal Architect, Pragrup. Architect Nilabh Nagar, Senior Associate Architect, Hafeez Contractor. Murli M, CMD, Shriram Properties. Anuj Khetan, Director, Vijay Khetan Group. Mr. Mukesh Jaitley, Director Projects, the Wadhwa Group. Mr. Ravindra Pai, MD, Century Real Estate. Vibhor Srivastava, Group Publishing Director, ITP Media India. And ably moderated by Jayshree Mendes, Editor, Construction Week. Now, let me hand it over to Jayshree, Editor, Construction Week, for further proceedings. Over to you, Jayshree.
Thank you, Indrajit. Okay, we're going to talk about homes that last, building homes that last. Most developers, of course, they wouldn't want to tarnish their reputation, would want to build and keep their buyers happy by building homes that last. What we would like to explore here is what are some of the technologies that they're using to make sure that their construction methodologies are stronger? How are architects helping them? And that's why we are one reason we have architects also. How are they helping them? How are they helping them make the structures also stronger?
Jayshree, you're on mute.
So yeah, sorry. We'll speak to architects first before we move on to developers. Maybe Nilabh, we could start with Nilabh. Nilabh, how has design evolved over the years so that you can bring in an element of structural sturdiness? Nilabh, you're on mute. Nilabh, your audio is on mute.
Yeah. Yeah, hi. I think the structural sturdiness was never compromised by, I think, any good engineer or a good architect or anybody else. So sturdiness, I think, was always been in the uppermost in the minds of people. So, but the codes have changed over the time. There have been what you learned over the period of time, what was 50 years ago, what was 25 years ago, what happened 10 years ago, and probably the latest was 2016 when a new National Building Code came, and the codes have changed. The codes also have changed as you have improved the technology over a period of time. The codes have also addressed that the skill set that we have developed over a time, and accordingly those have changed. And some of the shortcomings that they have found, they have also tried to accommodate that in the codes and this thing. So structural stability or sturdiness, as you call it, has, I think, always been there, and there has never been a compromise on that. What has happened and over the time is that computer analysis have enabled more complex structures to be analyzed and built. Parametric design has made it possible to create robust, sturdy geometry with more optimum materials. So what has happened is that we have been able to use, computer has been able to help us create the same sturdiness with a far more optimum use of resources. So I think that has been a great thing. And now with this new parametric design, the material resources can now be optimized to its potential and its efficiency. So every material will now behave to its best efficiency. So that is what has happened in recently. And that's where I think architects and engineers have now striving to achieve that.
You said the codes have changed. Maybe architect Ravindra Kumar could expound on that and tell us what are the kind of, how do you look at it when Nilabh was talking about the codes have changed or the methodologies have changed? What could they be?
See, I think the essence of how one would want to build or progress a construction idea, in its origin and the methodology for an architect will not change time immemorial. I think that will continue to transform itself into new paradigms and new sort of formatting of how the information collection should happen when we do the construction ideas of what we must build. But if you look at every city has actually varied the kind of code, not just based on the context, or it depends on the urbanity of that particular zone or the seismic regulations, or if you look at the nature of humidity, water, monsoon, or the recent, for example, disasters that have struck on the Northeast region. So each particular sector will in some way transform itself into a parameter which is very context-based. So therefore, I think, they are only guidelines. Unfortunately, we've started growing into a space in India, especially that the code becomes a kind of a rule or a regulatory kind of a formwork rather than a sort of a suggestive kind of an idea. Because if you look at some of the projects that we did, for example, in Beijing and Shanghai, what was very nice is after the project was done, there was a forum, there was a discussion, there was a group of people whom we had to interact. That's what used to happen in Delhi. When I did the IGBI campus for Delhi, I had to go present my project to Charles Correa. This was a couple of years back. And it was important for us to go into a discussive environment, and they were allowing transformations and changes from the code of practice to go into a new idea of building if it was logical. So therefore, I think that interest has to grow into the space, and then the code has to become a guideline.
Indrajit, would you like to move on to the next question?
Just one moment, Indrajit. Can you hear me? Hi, everybody.
Yes, hi.
Basically, hi, Ravindra, as well. I mean, I just wanted to labor on a minute between Nilabh and Ravindra. So there is obviously a new adaptability, but what has been the condition that you've seen the world evolving in terms of design? How is it impacting Ravindra design now? I mean, in such a current scenario?
Sorry, can you state that again? I think I had a little glitch of the voice.
No, I'm saying these codes, and I depends on, you rightly said, from city to city, regulation, climatic condition. But what has now, it has changed the scenario for designers in these times?
It has, in the sense that change, I beg to differ, because I think we are in a very, very temporary kind of a phase. The space gap that we are looking at, it's not that it has not happened before. And, whenever there's a real estate crash, for example, or when there is, like we are experiencing the pandemic, or, if there is a phase space where, when we were building, for example, an Infosys campus in Bhubaneswar, there were huge, sort of cyclonic, strikes that happened. And then what we were doing as construction became a challenge. So I think these are all spaces of challenge that we must reciprocate and react. It's very, very awkward to suddenly jump and say, okay, commercial real estate is going to die. Everybody's going to work from home, and all of us will be, looking at a new world. There will be no breather for real estate for another 7 months. I think this speculative idioms is kind of very awkward. And today we are looking at the pandemic and looking back and said, oh, very good, we did the lockdown, so everybody's saved, and we only lost 100,000 people. And not like 1 million people. It's very easy to speculate these directions. But sometimes when we introspect and see, and then we say, hey, what did we do for the last 60 days? Were we all awkward and wrong? Or is there a new way? Or should it have been done in a different way? I think these are the important questions that we need to address today, rather than, I think, go into a sort of a pandemic sort of, depression syndrome.
I think you're quite excellent. And Nilabh, do you also feel that I think there should be more engineering and thought, deliberation and ideations at how we can do better?
I think what you were wanting to ask was that how has the recent building codes affected the building design? If that were the case, then yes, some of the aspects of the flexibility which was there earlier is not there, probably new national building code. But having said that, what Ravindra has been saying is that internationally speaking, there has been a dialogue between the building design and the authorities, wherein there is the city takes a call and calls up. Like Delhi Urban Arts Commission has this body which can override over a certain things, and there's a dialogue between design, and there's a committee of design. Same thing happens, say Bombay Heritage Panel decides that okay, you can do this to the building. But what I was referring to earlier was the structural building codes, and there are bylaws. The bylaws is what affects the architectural design, and the codes which design the structural sturdiness, because the initial question was on structural sturdiness. So if you look at it that way, the building bylaws, yes, there is a huge amount of restrictions in different cities the way it is built. In case of IT campuses, which are in this large 400 acres, there isn't any restriction at all. You have all the freedom to do what you want. But when it's in inner city areas, then you have the bylaws which come into play. In London, for example, you have a dialogue. There, it takes a lot of time to get the permissions, but the program of the building itself is decided by the city. You decide, yes, you want a housing here. If you want a housing here, then you have to have a certain amount of school or a creche or something else has to happen, which the city needs. So the developer has to provide that. So that way, the bylaw, the way it is written, ours is a very prescriptive one, whereas that you have to do exactly what is told. Whereas what we architects would like to have is to have a certain amount of dialogue with the city to come up with a much better city tomorrow.
Completely agreeable. I think Indrajit, you can move to the next.
Yeah, sure. Uh, this is specifically for Mr. Murali. If you had to mention some of the parameters that matters most in development, what would they be? For example, design, appearance, etc.
Design plays a very important role of late, particularly on these apartment projects, townships and all that. Design plays a very, very important role. And the architectural intelligence has evolved in the last few years to a very different level. My appreciation to all the architects here. They all been doing a fantastic job and playing a very crucial role in getting this, design. So it's just not the external appearance. Today, all these architects here, they've gone into play a much bigger role in terms of understanding what is it customer wants and how the customer preferences have been changing over a period of last 5 years, let us say. In the last 5 years, the customer preferences have changed at least about 10 times or 15 times. Now, all these architects, have been quick enough to adopt to the recent changes and have come out with brilliant options to accommodate the current day requirement. I think just outside the bylaw. See, one is bylaw. See, all the bylaws have put a lot of restrictions. In fact, I would encourage not to have any bylaw. We just tell them, today, at least, the tier A developers, if you take, they are more responsible than any other regulatory authority today. They are more responsible to themselves first. They are more responsible to their own clients first. Second, they are responsible to their own stakeholders, which includes the society, rather than the regulatory bodies. Probably, you could put A grade. It's difficult for the government to do it, but if there is a chance, if there is a choice, probably you should put that and put that architect along with them. Then they'll be able to do a phenomenally good job. See, now with so much restrictions from the bylaws, architects, particularly the change in behavior of the customers today, architects have got a very, very important role to play. In fact, we constantly engage. It's just not the initial design stage. Thereafter, during the execution stage, during the entire project period, we constantly engage with the architect because of the preferences changing from customer behavior. So, and they've been they have a very important role to play. So, everyone has been doing a good job so far.
Thank you, Mr. Murali. Mr. Pai, with your inputs on with design, appearance, or structural stability, what you feel? You are on mute, Mr. Pai. You'll have to unmute yourself and then.
Sorry, some of these learnings of getting onto webinars.
Yeah.
So we as a group are very focused on two aspects while designing our projects. It's primarily what we call the longevity and the livability. When I talk about livability, it's primarily about, how easy do we make it for our customers to live in? It could be things like good light and ventilation, elimination of dead spaces inside the house, effective utilization of spaces. For example, especially let's say in the COVID era, converting living rooms into an additional room, or the guest room doubling up as a yoga room or home office space. Similarly, even in the common areas, we look at dedicated delivery areas for pods in the lobbies to receive parcels. And in specific projects, we also look at providing maybe primary medical health care and health facilities. From a longevity perspective, it is largely to do with terms of maintenance of the projects. How can we ensure that for the resident associations, the maintenance costs in the projects are reduced? So we are extremely mindful when we design our projects about the kind of technology we use for, let's say, the STP, DG, ACs. In terms of how we make it maintenance least hassle-free for the association, as well as maybe reduce energy consumption and things like that. Thereby, the overall costs come down. So for us, more than the appearances, it's more focused on really the design aspects of it, especially from a longevity as well as the livability factor for the customer.
Perfect, Mr. Pai.
Mr. Bahadur, we're talking about design, talking about structural buildings, structural strengths. What are some of the common mistakes that you have seen in construction practices which render a structure risk prone to damages later?
I think the whole thing can be seen in two different ways we can split it. One are the individual homes which are built across the country, which are really the individual housing units. And the secondly, in the major metros where the multi-storied buildings are being constructed. So the challenges are different in both these two different sort of let's say, ways of construction. But what one certainly sees is over the past few decades, the deterioration of the structures is much faster. So which would mean that the sturdiness which is there as far as design is concerned is one thing, but then implementing it in adopting correct construction systems and methods and materials is another. So as long as, once we see that there is a lacuna or there are mistakes which happen even in as simple material like a basic thing as concrete itself, we find that the concretes are not well compacted, they are not produced well. Once you do that, even though the design might have been giving some guidelines, but implementation of that leads a gap. That leads to penetration of water, more corrosion, all that stuff, and the structures come under distress much earlier than what they should have been actually supposed to be. So therefore, construction methodology, adopting, doing it the correct manner, that is also very, very important to adopt, considering the various types of structures which are being built.
Thank you, Dr. Bahadur.
Jayashree, can I just extend this one to Mr. Jaitley to bring in?
Sure.
Mr. Bahadur very rightly said there are construction methods are very important, especially in these times. And I think we're talking about homes that last. What are you making sure in your projects, Mr. Jaitley, in terms of there's the right use of methodology, there is a right use of, in terms of material, and also getting into detailing of the, the basic material which founds to the, the foundation to the building?
Yeah, first of all, let me, I appreciate the how architects think, and Mr. Murli and Mr. Pai mentioned. We get into the project right from the drawing board itself. So when there is an architect on board, and we as a developer, we have certain feedbacks, what a customer is looking for or what certain set of customers are looking for, and we get into those nitty-gritties along with a team of architects, putting our experience into it and their creativity together. Now, also it would depend what is the asset class we are building, whether it's a commercial, it's a premium, it's a luxury, or it's an affordable thing. Eventually cost is going to matter a lot in terms of its sales price and in what we offer, and we don't want to differentiate by giving best quality to the luxury or premium brands and a very cheaper varieties of materials to be used in the affordable segments. So there is no compromise that. But what we can try to do is, irrespective of whatever the asset class is, the kind of formwork we use, gone are the times, where plywood and other stuff were used. What we are doing is we are going with 100% aluminum foam for each and every structure we do. So there is no compromise on the structure. What it does is it gives us a better quality of construction. As Mr. Bahadur said, we ensure that the quality of concrete which goes into the formwork is of the high standards, and all those necessary tests are taken care of. Going forward, what we are also trying to do is, with the shortages of natural resources, we are moving practically to a dry construction by using aluminum foam. And also with the structural team, what we are trying to do is, try and avoid as much as possible different kind of material uses. For example, I can go with a AEC block partition walls, which will give me a lesser weight on the structure and save my steel and eventually the cost. But we sit down with the structural team and see that even the partition walls of bathrooms and kitchens and living rooms are done in the non-structure walls. So what it does, it eliminates one of my activity of doing a masonry work, which would involve labor. Now, in a given scenario, what is going to happen is labor is going to come at a premium. So we had already started thinking on those lines, how lesser labor can be used and more mechanical things can be used, or more and more things can be done at one go so that there is no repetitive. So once you have casted a floor, you move on to the next floor and practically move on to the dry way of working is once your curing period is achieved, then you move to the new set of finishings. What you want to do, gypsum plaster, you want to do spray plaster. Now spray is another beautiful thing we can use, because again it takes lesser labor, and I can achieve the quantum of work, larger quantum of work in a very short span of time. So what it does is, I'm uh, indulge me for a few minutes. What it does is that I can defer my starting of finishing items to say even by a couple of months. It puts a lesser pressure on my cash flow, and I achieve those things. Then use screeds for your tiling. You use chemical bonding materials for your tiles on walls or on the floors, so that your reliance on the natural material is less and less, because the quality of those materials are as it is not coming good, and eventually we don't want to come out with a product which is inferior and leads to leakages and all. I'll give you an example of from the design stage. We have a philosophy called ventilate, where we are we think big on light, air and ventilation in our design. So you'll see a lot of windows and airiness and these things. For our developments, be it a standalone building, be it a gated community of 100 of acres, or a small 8-10 acres development, we focus more on the wellness. So even our one bedroom apartments will have two washrooms coming up, because one we for the saleability we call it as a attached bathroom along with the master bedroom. The second one is kind of powder room or a common bathroom. The idea being that the hygiene factors improves. You have a staff at home who use one particular bathrooms or other many things which will need to be done at home. So wellness is a big thing for us, and by using materials uh, which are kind of manufactured in a very controlled environment and used in a very controlled way, gives us the quality we derive. I was going to mention one more thing about air, like ventilation. So a lot of windows come up in our apartments, and the basic thing is my entire structure would be RCC. I have taken care that there won't be any leakages or seepages through that RCC wall. But windows are susceptible. You fix up the windows, and the windows are one thing. Especially in Mumbai, if you see with the kind of gust of wind we get in the rainy season, your waters tend to come in. So we have gone ahead and made a small little detail where we have a step sill all around on all the four sides of the window, so that the sections go and sit in those niches, and then and the gutter sections of the aluminum windows, which is a must. Even if you are using a 500 square feet window or 1,000 square feet of window, for us that gutter section is really important. Those are small little details we get into it. So once that source of water is eliminated, you have actually taken care of 80 to 90% of your pain points, what the customers come back with the complaints. So just to sum it up, we sit down with the structural engineers, we sit down with the architects, and we through our own experiences of construction and use of material is something we keep experimenting and see that we come out with the best things. And for example, like just to add, post this situation of COVID, I hate using the word COVID, but post this, we'll have to look out for the material which are the surfaces of which are resistance to germ, your interior paints, your external paints, your tile surfaces, and many such products are there in the offering, which probably we might not be using, but now, uh, so to say, to market also your homes, you can say it's a germ free, not germ free, but germ resistance homes which are there, which
Yeah.
people will look up to now.
Very nice. I mean, Mukesh, we'll come to on that. I think I just wanted to quickly get some sense from Anuj. I mean, we heard Mukesh talk about multiple things that they're doing in the project, and I think Mr. Bahadur will appreciate their kind of work and ensuring there are no leakages. But of course, you have a solution right here on the frame, which should you need in the projects. But let's hear from Anuj what he has to say. In terms of Anuj, what we are seeking for is that in your projects, what is the kind of emphasis on technology that you're doing, and putting amount of the research and the technology adoption that you are in, and how is it seeing the construction better and better going forward?
Thank you, Bibor. Like as Mukesh ji rightly said, gone are the days of plywood formwork. Like we are, be it like anyways, like the projects our company needs to do has a certain scale, and if you have a certain scale, aluminum formwork is the best way to go forward. It reduces the chances of leakages from the external walls, as well as it reduces the overall time frame for the entire project execution. So it's not a new technology, but it is like there is some simple solutions are the best solutions to stick to. And waterproofing again is something which we really take close care about, because in at least we operate in Mumbai, and Mumbai, as you know, is prone to heavy rainfall, and what leakages in buildings is one of the biggest culprits in getting the building to age prematurely. So waterproofing is something we really take seriously, the dead walls especially, because you never know, there's a leakage in the building. It would be one small tap which is leaking in maybe one floor of the building, but the whole building is suffering because of it. So, water finds its own way to show its effects. So we try to take as much care as we can when it comes to waterproofing and when it is the overall construction. And as Mukesh ji rightly said, like going forward, there will be a lot of emphasis on how safe your home is, how eco-friendly the home is. You want to live in a home where you feel safe, and as we are also looking very actively into materials which we can make homes which are germ resistant. Like you cannot make a germ free home, but we can make homes which are more resistant towards bacteria. So
are there, I mean, I just out of think, I mean, are there any audits that you'll do?
Yeah, so there is surprising. We've been speaking to this one company in America, which lately, so couple of, to be in all fairness, about 3 to 4 years ago, we had an interaction with them, but we found their consultancy, of ₹5 per square feet just for like making homes a little germ free, a little too expensive. But now in the hindsight, we have been actively chasing them for the last 2 months and getting them to audit our building. It's a company called Delos, which has been working with many organizations in America, like the Mayo Health Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic. So they have been coming up with surfaces where small examples, like coming up with door handles, which is made of a material where every time you touch it from your body heat, some reaction happens on the surface and it kills the bacteria. Small things like that, because door handles are one of the biggest cause of transfer of germs in homes.
Very nice. I mean, these are something, Mr. Bahadur, just wanted to have Mr. Bahadur, because there is something which is, I heard from Mr. Mukesh as well, Anuj, the kind of attention and detailing to leakage. And I think it's a nightmare. I was in Delhi, taking a second, 30 seconds. We were staying in a big, nice flat, but, when it was shown, there was nothing. And within a couple of months, the whole wall were damped, and it really put the mood off for us. Mr. Bahadur, your take on very quickly on the two.
Actually, both the comments, what we just heard, even if you want to think in terms of designing any building which is germ resistant, of course, there may be handles, there may be internal coatings, there may be tile joints which are germ resistant. It can be designed various materials. But one thing fundamentally, those buildings, the germs, remember germs grow and grow in an area where there is dampness or there are crevices. So therefore, any structure that we may design, I think post-COVID, we must be little more, careful in ensuring that the dampness is certainly prevented. And obviously choosing the materials is comes there as to, apart from how you are waterproofing little better, how whatever technologies we are using for making sure that the permeability of concrete is low. Obviously, there is going to be, next thing is that, the manpower which is going to be much lesser in times to come. I just heard, Mr. Jaitley talking about spray plasters. It's a good thing to hear. Yeah, probably it is right. We have to adopt technologies, including spray plasters. I would just add that design spray plasters which are also waterproof. So just think in that line that we have to go through mechanization. We have to adopt technologies where mechanization is more. But waterproofing is going to be very important for sure. We have to design the buildings, use materials which protect the building from heat and water both actually, as far as, to create more livable spaces which are going to last longer and also which are healthy to live in.
So
I just think that there's just one more thing I wanted to add here. I think in our country as a whole, we have this one method called brickbat koba, which is very popular to be used on the terraces. And I think that is something which it's time to just ban it and stop it. It is very labor intensive. So I think post-COVID anyway, it will have difficulties to execute it in that manner. Besides the technical limitations, which we have been arguing, various engineers and architects talking about it for many decades, it's not done anywhere else in the world. And I would just recommend strongly on this platform that we should ban it in the future and use lightweight waterproof screeds and things like that, other technologies which can be replaced with this.
Absolutely right, Sanjay. So for our residential, the new project which we are working on this project, which is mid segment, 1 BHKs and 2 BHKs. So 1 BHK in these apartments, we are giving an option for the consumers to do their own interiors. Like there has been a trend where developers has been giving bare bone certain amount of interiors done up, like the floorings, and so we just thought, like, anyways the customers come and over 50%, 40 to 50% want to anyways do some alteration. So we've decided, like, we'll rather reduce the price of the apartment, do a little bit of a bare shell apartment, but bathroom is something that we'll be doing it completely ourselves and then handing over the apartment. Like, you cannot touch the bathroom walls, you cannot touch a single pipe in the bathroom, you can do whatever you want to the room. And we are laying down the air conditioning piping as well. Like the copper pipes that need to be laid down, we're doing it before the possession. We are doing it as our own work. So there are few things we are trying to do, because major culprit of what happens for leakages in large societies where the customers come and they try to do their work, calling their labor from the Naga, and they come with their hammers and they end up puncturing the waterproofing system, and the whole waterproofing system fails for the entire building. That one small nail.
No, I can't. I mean, really, like Mr. Bahadur wanted to say, but I think that's something very brilliant I've heard after a long time. Yes, Mr. Bahadur.
Yeah, this here, just to share, in Singapore, the all multi-storied buildings there, the tiling contractor is held. I'm just taking on this point. They do the waterproofing of bathroom, they do the waterproofing screed, they do the tiles and the grouts, all the materials, whatever are required to ensure that the internal wet areas are kept leak free. There is no water, whether it is a bathroom or a kitchen or a balcony. So I think maybe the Indian industry can also look at adopting something like what Singapore has done, one throat to choke, so let the contractor be responsible to do waterproofing and tiling both.
Definitely.
Can I come in for a minute?
Yeah.
So, three things, which are going to be very important and were important, but probably neglected. Three things. There are many companies, who are equally responsible for selling their product and has to be the best product. So, or you need to have a research team, no more your purchase guys can be non-technical people, you need to have your engineers as your purchase guys who would research well, debate on the product and try and use looking at its cost and everything. So this is one thing must. And in this, I would want to engage even the project heads to be the part of this discussion, so that they know what the material they are using. B, I agree with Mr. Bahadur. You need to have your contracting strategies have to change. You need to have a set of contractors who can do multiple activities which are related to each other, which follow each other. Like for example, waterproofing in bathrooms and this thing. One third thing which is totally ignored and very sparingly mentioned is the MEP part of the entire structure. Any MEP, which is the most neglected part of the construction or the development. A lot of thoughts have to go in there. From the placement of your outdoor units, how they will function. You stack up your outdoor units one above other, and it's going to generate the heat and the efficiencies of all the ACs won't be there. So how do you place them? How the discharge of their overflow of water will happen, so on and so forth. But finally, you might do anything on the table, on the drawing board, on the research part of it, but nothing takes away a good supervision. You might be sitting on the top of the pyramid, but if you're not a good supervisor, or if you don't inculcate that habit of supervision, uh, down the line, your product is still going to come out bad, come what may you may use. So just to so my age, when we used to go around 30 floors walking up and down and do the supervision of the building. But today there are softwares available, there are mobile apps available which can be, they just have to click the picture and pass it on and keep tracking those things. So those technologies also are there to be used, but supervision cannot take anything. Nobody can replace a good supervision.
Thank you, Mr. Jaitley. Indrajit, would you like? There are a lot of people trying to reach us with questions.
Yes, I would like to take one of the audience live, if you guys permit.
Yeah.
Rohan, can we take a live question? I guess Shwetank wants to ask.
Hello.
Hi, Shwetank.
Hi, good evening, all.
You can introduce yourself and then ask the question to a particular
definitely.
panelist.
So, myself, Shwetank, and I'm from Delhi. So, basically, sir, we are from co-working space company, right? So, my question is, what type of material we are going to use as we are going to do some automation part in my co-working spaces, and construction or interior wise, what type of material we can use, and what is the impact of on is going to happen on real estate industry after this COVID.
Okay. Ravindra, in case if you want to take it.
Sorry, sir. One more thing is there.
Yeah.
I want to add something. Sir said the wooden panels or wooden work is more you're going to use after this COVID situation. So why we can't choose aircon panels instead of wooden panels?
Fair.
A fair question. Everybody is on a panic mode, so everyone wants to know what is this great transformation that's going to happen in industry. Trust me, nobody can sit at home and work other than software industries. So nothing is going to change the real estate, parameters of scale up or scale down. It might hurt in some way for a certain period of time, but this whole notion that people will be not flying, people will be stationed in the same city, and they're going to all sit at home and work is not something that is going to be there forever. And I think every material is absolutely divine. We need to just be healthy. Everyone should have 2 shots of vodka every day and be happy. Then I think we'll all be healthy. It's not going to really, I think it's not going to really change some material idea which will, completely encourage anti-germification. We have to be just healthy. Each one of us have to ensure that we don't infect others, very consciously. I think that common sensibilities has to grow. We must make less children and, hold our population growth drastically. And I think, as one of the gentlemen said, the quality of construction that you build must be absolutely accurate. If you look at Mr. Murli's sites, for example, it's a joy. I sort of cycle on the edges of 2 of his projects, and one of the engineers who used to work with me for almost 14 years is also working with him. And it's a treat to see the quality of how he maintains the site, the materiality that he gets it right. Every time you're building a block, you're doing concrete, you're doing plastering, it's a sight to behold. It's nice. I think if we get that habit into space, then everything is fine. Because, it's like a couple of years ago when we were doing the first phase of Nirlan, for example, in Bombay, they said, no, you can do transverse girders, you could do cantilevers of 5.5 meters, 6 meters. And then after 4 years, they said, no transverse girders. They said, no cantilevers beyond 2.5 meters. It doesn't mean all the buildings that you've already done 8 years ago are redundant, are unstable. Every apartment project in Bombay is done with transverse girders. It used to be done like that. Now suddenly there is a paradigm shift. It doesn't mean all those guys who are sitting on those homes, will not be insured anymore or something like that. So therefore, change is something that is constant. It's evolving. And every material is absolutely divine. I beg to differ that brick bat koba is bad. I think the quality of construction, if it is done intelligently, accurately, through good process, I think then it's absolute joy. So therefore, for, a co-working space or for the materiality of what you think is important, it is an evolving criteria. Timber, I think, is a fantastic material. It's, it has a certain nature of recycle and reuse, which is fabulous. But every other material might have an intrinsic way of treating them to be a little more better than growing into a space of germification. So I think that would be an important parameter that we'll all have to recognize. And wellness, I think it did not come now. It was there already before. A couple of our buildings are already certified. We're using a consultant from Hong Kong to do these kind of evaluations. So, it's important that we have to aggravate to a space of wellness quality in everything that we do, whether you're sitting in a car or sitting, on a bike or getting into another office space, you're moving from one space to the other. We have to become super conscious about how we will be hygienic and encourage others to be hygienic and not get infected. I think that's all that is important. Even co-working space was only for the fact that you don't want to sit at home and work. That's why the whole co-working phenomena happened in the world, and I cannot see how people can abolish that idea and say, forget it, everyone will sit at home and work. That's not going to happen. So I want real estate to grow, and I'm sure it'll grow leaps and beyond. And India is doing the smallest value of real estate to the number of people that we have, and I think we need to grow into that paradigm shift and grow into that qualitative shift, new materials, new ideas is very important if you're building Burj Khalifa, it's a 1-mile tower, we are not building, our high-rise buildings are low-rise in the world, so I don't think we need to really panic on that space, and we need to do good quality construction. And I think that's what is most important.
Thank you, Ravindra. This was really insightful, and I guess Shwetank got his answer. Thank you, Shwetank. This one is for you, Nilabh, and this is from Mr. Keshav Varkhetkar, former Chief Engineer, Sitco, Maharashtra. He wants to ask, normally a project is awarded to an architect who is leading a team of various experts. As an architect, how do you maintain proper synergy between them, accommodating their views and also keeping your creative idea intact?
Nilabh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm saying that working with engineers and structural engineers, MEP engineers, or any other engineer I don't see it as a challenge at all, because all of them are people whom we have been working with over last 25, 35 years, depending on whose career is at what stage. And architects and engineers have always got along quite well. So to me, it's never been a challenge in the sense that you need to give space for every engineering element that there is in the building. And yes, we do fight with structural engineers in terms of the column sizes, and we tend to not like them big. We try to see how best we can do and try to adopt new technologies, probably increase the grade of concrete or do something like that and make it happen. But overall, I don't think there's a challenge that we face on that. And to be frank, a lot of engineers have also contributed to good design. If you want to create some nice innovative buildings and all that, I've always found that good structural engineers come up with innovate themselves to ensure that this particular shape is able to be built and happen. So, and in terms of whether it's housing, whether it is IT parks, whether it is anything else that we do, I have found that engineering team has been supportive in getting our vision through.
Thank you, Nilabh. Rohan, can we quickly run the poll now? It's like you can put the poll live. Meanwhile, I'll take a very interesting question. This had come up from our Hindi reader. He wants to ask, like this is open to all panelists, and it's a very interesting question though. He wants to ask, क्या हमारे पूर्वजों ने विकसित की हुई कंस्ट्रक्शन टेक्नोलॉजी ज्यादा बेहतर थी? हम ईंट गारे और पत्थर से घर बना लेते थे जो सदियों चलते थे, पर आज मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करके, सीमेंट सरिया यूज करके भी घर टिक नहीं पाते. ऐसा क्यों है? एंड ही हैज अ फॉलो अप क्वेश्चन टू इट. घर की मिनिमम गारंटी कितनी होनी चाहिए?
इंद्रजीत, आपने बहुत अच्छा पढ़ा, एक बार फिर से पढ़िए क्वेश्चन.
I'll just read it once. It's a very. क्या हमारे पूर्वजों ने विकसित की हुई कंस्ट्रक्शन टेक्नोलॉजी ज्यादा बेहतर थी? पहले हम ईंट गारे और पत्थर से घर बनाते थे जो सदियों चलते थे, पर आज मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करके, सीमेंट सरिया यूज करके भी घर टिक नहीं पाते. ऐसा क्यों है? और घर की मिनिमम गारंटी कितनी होनी चाहिए?
मतलब इसका हिंदी में अनुवाद कर रहे हैं. हमारे पूर्वज मतलब हमारे जो सीनियर्स थे, मतलब मिट्टी और ईंट से घर बनाते थे, बट कोई मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं होती थी, बट चलते थे. लेकिन आज के समय में, रोहन, कैन यू पुट दिस पोल असाइड फॉर अ मिनट? सो एंड बट टुडेज टाइम विद न्यू टेक्नोलॉजीज, मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजीज, आर वी एबल टू अचीव दैट?
Yeah, he's giving example. Yeah, he's giving an example of his.
Who wants to take it?
He had given example of his ancestral properties and like Meenakshi Temple and all those.
No, very good. So Mr. Jaitley is raising his hand. Yeah.
Yeah. So as I earlier said, it's number one, the supervision part of it. B, the kind of material what we get, when I started my career way back, the kind of quality of bricks used to get, the clay, the kind of the quality of clay from which the bricks used to be made is no more so. If you test the bricks today, their absorption capacity is that goes haywire. So just I'll connect with the brickbat coba, Mr. Bahadur. Why people still use brickbat coba for the terraces and also prefer Shabad Ladi for the basement waterproofing is because these are time-tested old methods, and they have proven. But only thing is, if you get right quality of brickbats, if you get right quality of Shabad, the thicknesses, not the half inches where you pour the concrete and it cracks by itself, and the way it is laid. So I agree with him that nothing is lost, but the quality of the material and the quality of workmanship is lost. You might talk of Indian temples, but where are those artisans? There are none. You can create good pictures on your comp by using various softwares, but you need hands to work on site to do that. So where are those artisans? Where are those kind of materials? Natural materials are kind of adulterated now, so you don't get the end product which is good.
And I would also like to add to Mr. Jaitley, when Meenakshi Temple was being built, we did not have SBI and HDFC breathing down our neck to pay our EMIs on time, because I think so they had the liberty. The first and primal thought for them was to build the best product. That Meenakshi temple has to be best out there. For us, we have to find, we try to do our best right now, that there has to be zero compromise in what product we are giving. At the same time, at the speed of execution that we go through right now, I'm pretty sure it took probably 10 years, 15 years to make Meenakshi temple.
More than that, probably.
Probably. In 10 years, we develop a whole Hirandani Pavai over here now.
Yeah.
In modern times, if you have read about Bahai Temple, it took 11 years, and it's all in concrete. And see the way it has come up. The dedication. The architect was on site for 11 long years and supervising everything. So it's possible to get good structures with modern materials. But as I said, the quality of material which goes in and the supervision what goes in will give you a product. And of course, design.
And the minimum guarantee part, anyone would like to take up, in case, what should be the minimum guarantee of a structure?
That will be another debate.
Yeah, I know.
So I think Jayashree will move. Shweta, but very glad, gentlemen and lady on the screen. We have launched Construction Week in Hindi because there is a huge readership. And Shwetank ji, thank you. आपने बड़ा अच्छा सवाल पूछा. ये चर्चे का विषय हो सकता है next के लिए. Jayashree, over to you.
Yeah. I would like to ask Ravi and Murli my next question. Since you have multiple projects going on at the same time, how do you distinguish? How do you make each project unique, and how do you work with architects for that? Ravi?
Very good question. I think what is very important is when we build in multiple cities, multiple sites, and different kinds of clients, we have to understand the contextualism. I always tell my team, and also when I present some of the works that we've done as sharing platforms, it's very important that we have to grow out of the site, and make it very specific to the climate, to the client, to the need, and innovate as a sustainability accurate sort of measure, and not necessarily be bombastic or Aldo Van Eyck said in one of his great journals that a home or a house or a building is absolutely most successful in its urbanity only when a passerby doesn't even notice it. So it has to be so accurately woven into the fabric of the city and the milieu that is when you can grade into the space of accuracy. So our uniqueness does not come as what Nilabh does. For example, his every building is an icon. Everything is a new idea. So which is fantastic as an architectural sort of endeavor. But for us, we are very versatile. We are very varying. We work with team understanding. We include the client in a lot of our discussions, and we evolve a process and program, and then go into a very detailed analytical mode before we eventually conclude on what we want to build. So that's one of the aspects of how we bring the team. And the previous question is very, very accurate, that historicity is very important. There is a possibility, of course, like the Meenakshi temple might have built by whipping some a million people or looting a neighboring country. We don't know, that's how they got the money, But at the same time, there is a lot of learning, not one building today will live beyond 40 years, It is so depressing that we don't know how to build monuments, And that is the aspect, no architectural, idea that has come around over the last 20 years or 25 years are worth where we can thump our chests. There might be great sort of moments of joy or orgasms that they would have got. Suddenly that building happened and everybody loves it. The Bombay or Bangalore or that city will say, wow, there's a great idea. That's a nice building. And after 5 years, you said, oh my God, it just looks so outdated, so mundane. So I think for me, the life is beautiful if I could go back 100 years or go back 125 years. Every time you walk in the city, everyone in Bangalore or Bombay or Delhi feels the same way. If you could live 60 years ago, it was a little more better than what it is today. So we are only growing into, a space of disastrous sort of culmination. So we have to figure out how to learn from our past, how to learn from traditional vernacular architecture, how to bring back values of that construction where buildings become time immemorial, rather than just go through this innovation jargon and make a disaster.
All right.
Ravindra
Thank
ji,
you.
like, I'd just like to add a
Just
point.
wanted to take Mr. Ravindra Pai's input on this one. Sorry, we'll come to you, Anuj.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I think in the past, the way we differentiated projects was either by having some fancy themes or appointing international architects or tying up with celebrities. Now we have seen, projects that are based on, let's say, a Formula One theme, with maybe having some sort of a driver as a brand ambassador, or even, in a Venice theme, where large water bodies are sort of provided in the project, which are for all practical purposes not practical at all. I think the focus now in general has come down to practicality. The things that I talked about, which is the livability and the longevity. As a company, we are very focused on providing practical and affordable housing solutions to our customers. Differentiation, what we look at now are more in terms of moving away from a rate per square foot. Can we package it as a one ticket size? Apartments where with modular furniture maybe where spaces are more efficient. Durability of the materials we use, such as doors and windows, introducing maybe smart features such as contactless lifts. Some of us are talking about the germs, and people are getting a little panicky and worried. Maybe smart locks, visitor management system. So these are aspects which I think are going to be the differentiation going forward, rather than really just having more in terms of appearances or themes in that sense.
Very well, Mr. Pai. I think getting realistic and being on very much grounded, I think value and application and usability. Mr. Murli, can I take your inputs on the same thing, please?
Every project, before conceptualizing the project, we do a market study on who could be our potential customers in this specific location. And as Ravi said, what could be the ticket size? What could be their affordability? We look at that. And also we look at their preferences. See, each micro market, one is at the macro level. At the micro market level, each site has the capability to attract a particular set of home buyers. So we do a thorough survey on that. And based on that, we design. So in fact, now, I do not know, some of you may be familiar with South. We are designing a project, something called Agrahar. So that's a concept we are trying to create now. So this kind of concept, we look at based on the customer demand. That's very important. So no point in designing something, which is not going to be fitting into the consumer. That's very critical. And it's going to be value conscious. There are a few challenges. While we work on this addressing the customer needs. On the other hand, regulatory challenges across, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, wherever we see today, new regulations, new bylaws that keep changing. That also brings a lot of constraint. So within which you need to achieve whatever needed to be done. But we keep our focus on how do we enhance value for every square millimeter what we are providing. That's very, very important in terms of space design and as well as the accessibility or the services part. Then also probably it's time now we should keep in mind how do we keep the maintenance the lowest. That's another very critical aspect we keep in mind. Otherwise, it could become a white elephant. Then probably the current set of, we are, as you know, we are in affordable housing segment. So for them, every rupee counts. So we need to keep that in mind while designing. For example, now, of late we started thinking no more swimming pool. It's a waste of, many people do not even use. Now Corona has probably emphasized further that, swimming pool is not needed. But some projects we already started designing 6 months ago, no swimming pool. Rather than give better utilization of the space is what we are focusing on.
I think all your values and all your features have been in tandem to what's happening currently. Anuji, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, just adding to what Murli sir said and what Ravindra ji said. As you rightly said, sir, swimming pool is you have to be mindful about. We also have in our upcoming project are working towards thinking of no swimming pool because it adds up a lot on the monthly maintenance, and secondly, the usage of the swimming pool is less than of 10% of the residents of the entire complex. Rather, we would give a bigger open space and have the same area used for something else where more like maybe 50-60% of the residents would rather use it.
Wonderful. Yeah. So,
And
please,
second,
please go ahead.
And secondly, like, as Ravindra ji said, like, so looking back, the evolution that has started to happen in the last 20 years, if you see the buildings of the which were constructed from say 2000 and before, and the buildings that started to be made from 2000 onwards, there is a metamorphic change. Like, there was no, from 1950s to 2000, or maybe 1930s to 2000, there was absolutely, whichever building was being made looked exactly the same. There was not much evolution that happened. But from 2000 onwards, Nilabh ji might be very aware of it. Like, our first building, like our corporate center, came on in Andheri. It was like, designed by Nilabh ji's firm. And it was a glass facade, beautiful building, which was earlier seen like, right then DLF was starting to come up with the complexes in Gurgaon. And before that, if you think about what the buildings used to be for commercial complexes, and then what started to come up. And same for residential as well. Like, you had the box buildings, which you had, and then you had beautiful facades that started to come up, like how you had the neo-Gothic structures which were there in Powai, Hirandani, and towards the coastal line in Mumbai. So there has been an evolution, and then there has been an evolution towards the windows that were used and the materials that were used. But now again, the era has gone back 30 years, because now in Bombay, we are allowed no elevation features. Every square feet is counted for. So buildings are again going to be boxes, as like all the architects on this panel would agree. Like, the innovation that so it's not like we don't want to build, we developers don't want to build monuments, but building monuments would make us bankrupt. Because if you look at one monument that was trying to be made in Bombay, say the World Tower by Lodha, is still not being able to be finished, because so many things just come up that you just can't finish the project, and the project is not feasible anymore. Like, there was a beautiful tower being made called the India Tower on the coastal, like in front of Marine Drive, which was going to be over 100 floors. It couldn't materialize. It's not like the developers do not want to build monuments, and the architects cannot design monuments. Every architect, I'm sure, like, if given the free hand, would come up with, better looking buildings. Like, I'm pretty sure, like an Gherkin looking building in Bombay.
So very well, Anuj. I think we have to bite the reality. I mean, architects at the end of the day are there to make things which will sell. And as developers, you will not leave it. No, you will also like them to make something which will sell. Nilabh, so many times your name was talked. Ravindra mentioned about icons you do. Anuj ji mentioned about what you do. But I understand you do a variety of projects, and you've been doing with so many developers across this country. What's your take?
Yeah, I was just listening in. My take is like this, that I think all this talk about historic buildings and everything else, I think the most important thing is that we have, over the course of time, lost our ability to skill our people. And for a longest time, our human resource is our strongest point in India. So my thing is that we must, as all together, increase the skill development among the migrant, among the laborers, among everybody else. It's not about supervision. It's about the original guy who started building it, the guy who used to plaster it earlier. Earlier, we used to have mud buildings with lime plaster which do not leak. Today, we have all sorts of technology with all sorts of chemicals into it, and still nobody can guarantee it whether it will leak or not. A simple thing like a lime plaster it happened over centuries and centuries, and today we have huge amount of chemicals coming in, and how much chemicals can you put into a building to make sure it doesn't leak? So skill development, it's ultimately the skill of the person who is making it, and that much training which happened. For example, at Hirandani, there used to be a very strict system of the way the final site gets done. There is a supervisor, then there is a general manager, and then everything else. There's a sequence. At L&T or any of these large people sites, you have before any pour card happens, there are 25 checklists which happen before a concrete is happened. So there is a fair amount of skill development. To me, it's very, very important. There is, it's not that the brick building lasts longer than a concrete building. No, there are enough concrete buildings which have lasted a long time. Brick, because it's always been in compression, and the way the technology itself, the building technology itself, has a different thing. It doesn't have the same stress levels as a concrete building has. So you can't generalize saying that old buildings lasted longer or the new buildings should not last longer. There's no such thing. In terms of how can you make a great iconic building at a lesser cost? Yes, there is enough evidence in the world. A small building like the Church of Light in Japan, small building, not I don't think even more than 30,000 square feet, but it's an iconic building. It emotes itself when you walk into it. So cost and iconicity of a building has got, to me, it's got no relationship. Yes, you can have a fair amount, you can have a very loud and a building which can be attractive. It's like what you do dress for a wedding, but wedding is not every day. You have to have a daily, something which are good. Something which is good is always good. It's permanent. It's not, you don't dress it up for a particular occasion.
I think, yeah, and Nilabh, I think I completely agree to that, fundamentals. I mean, you have to believe in that. Mr. Bahadur, we saw so much of people asking, about and talking about where is belief in the buildings and icons and, doing buildings which are affordable, which is saleable, which is realistic, which has good usability. What is your take? Because by virtue, you work across the segments of people in the construction industry. What has been your experience?
Actually, you're right. We supply solutions to smallest houses anywhere in the remote areas to the tallest buildings in the country. Of course, there are various solutions which are used. It's not just one thing that is required for for all. The different materials are used for different type of constructions that are there. It's important to understand the materials that are going in, because there are solutions. See, chemistry has only evolved in solving the construction engineering problems. What was done 100 years back and what is being built now, there are different challenges. The time frames are different. You need to construct in a different manner, and therefore the solutions have evolved. From the point of view of chemical industry, therefore there are a host of solutions. In fact, Dr. Fixit offers the widest range of solutions for therefore many technologies to solve problems which may be required in different type of construction. So it's important to, what I'm trying to say is, choose the right type of technology, the materials to protect the building from leakages. That is also very important. So it has to be dovetailed into the understanding of the design of the building and the time frame within which it is to be built.
Yashi, you have a question for Mr. Bahadur, I guess.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Dr. Bahadur, this is a question also from one of the audience. Sometimes you see lots of good buildings, that are mostly new. You see lots of watermarks or seepage marks on those buildings. And despite, like Nilabh and all were talking about, how building codes, how structurally they're strong. What is the reason for these things?
I think I have already covered this because of the inadequate detailing and the type of construction that is the construction technique, the workforce, the way they do the waterproofing is probably inadequate. And there is, of course, as Mr. Nagar said, it's extremely important to also train your people to do correctly. So sometimes a lot of things go wrong even just because of improper training. Just the discussion was going on the plasters, etc. also. Why our plasters should crack? It doesn't crack all over the world. We just do it. We just don't do the plasters also well enough right now. So waterproofing and the construction materials doing correctly and training the people, I think that is the most important thing.
Thank you, Dr. Bahadur. Before, would you like to sum up?
Before I sum up, I think, this is an incredible panel, and I must try and, nudge a little more to seek, that's one message that you would like to give to the construction industry, as designers, as developers and builders yourselves, to the entire ecosystem to make sure that we work as one cohesive force to deliver the best. So one message, and I'm coming to you, Mr. Mukesh Jaitley, 30-second, what is that one key message to the industry that you would like to give?
More than industry, I would like to, as a developer, give it to the buyers, that they need to trust the developers, because like various other products available in the market, there are developers and there are developers. You should go with the pedigree of those and don't lose faith. And because once we might be constructing houses, but in our mind, we are constructing homes for the people.
Very well said. Mr. Murli, could you please unmute your mic, sir, and your take and your message to the industry?
We should not look any shortcuts. COVID or this kind of viruses keep coming. And this construction industry, I've seen enough viruses. This corona is the least virus one can think about it. Hence, consumer behavior is not going to change. As Ravindra was saying, somebody started with office space, whether work from home will happen or the requirement of office space will come down. My call is demand for office space will go up significantly, and more people will come and set up business in India. And work from home in India, I think it will be a non-starter is my view. Maybe about 2% of the people can look at, that's really at the top end. Hence, consumer behavior is unlikely to change, or it will take long time to change. Even if you look at, from clay bricks to hollow blocks to, concrete walls, it has taken about 40 to 50 years for accepting the change. Consumer behavior will take long time to change. Hence, stay focused on good quality delivery and keeping customers' interest, consumer interest in mind while designing, delivering, execution across.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Pai is missing.
Oh, he's there.
Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Architect Ravindra Kumar, just your take in terms of, because you work with the developer community and whole array of projects that you do. What is that one big message that you would like to give to the industry, construction industry?
I think earth matters. What is very important is earth matters. So whatever we build with, we must try and respect and resurrect earth. So when we build, it should be from earth, and when we perish, bury, or burn, it should become earth. That means to say it should degrade, biodegrade, and it should grow back into earth to become earth. So only that matters. And as long as all of us, both architects and developers and builders and everybody, understand this parameter, I think then we'll be in a more safe space going forward. And to build contextually and to learn to use reduced use, I think Mahatma Gandhi's statement is so appropriate to be austere, so we have to try and believe that we must use what we actually want to use rather than be opulent and ostentatious unnecessarily. So I'm going to tease Nilabh here. We don't need to be Vatican to build emphasis. So having said that, I think it's very important that earth matters.
Definitely. And let me get Nilabh back. Nilabh, I think, would you like to make a comment? Yeah. Nilabh, just unmute your mic. Nilabh, unmute your mic. Yeah.
I said that's a price that one has to pay for being on the top. I said that you always get, there is somebody there to pull your leg, so yeah, we have had our.
So long you're at the top, you won't mind.
So long as I'm on the top, it doesn't matter. So to me, I think the best thing which could be is that I've always heard this statement called architecture is the cause and the consequence of social change. And to me, I think the most important change that we need to bring about is this drive for excellence. I think and excellence doesn't mean it's expensive. Excellence means it's something which we all have to do, and we must ensure, all of us together as an industry, we must strive for that excellence, and at every aspect, from the from any aspect of construction, from design and everything else, we have lost that drive for excellence, and we always look towards the west or the east to get that. And I think we have enough talent and enough history and culture within us to be able to express that in our architecture and our this thing. And it's something which I think all of us should want to get there.
I'm next on frame. I see Mr. Bahadur. Mr. Bahadur, what is your message? And I think that will be very key for all the developers, because you are there, which unmistakably is definitely needed.
Just, I think I have made my comments. However, just the closing remarks from my side, Pidilite, as you are all aware, is a very consumer-centric company committed to quality and innovation. For decades, we have been pioneering products for small to large applications at home and industry, which have forged strong bonds with people from all walks of life. I just want to commit that Pidilite will continue to work through chemistry to solve construction problems in the future.
I really like the word resolve.
I can vouch for it.
Sorry, somebody said something?
I said I can vouch for that.
I love those words, resolve, solve. I mean, they're so rhythmic and so nice, and I remember. Anuj, would love to hear from you.
I think for developers and consumers alike, the most important thing going forward is to, be not be penny wise, pound foolish. When it comes to for developers, when it comes to developing your projects, a building does not have to look, be a building looking beautiful does not make it monument. The building staying there in that place for 50 years makes it a monument. So paying that extra 100-150 rupees per square foot to a good contractor versus trying to save that 100 rupees to go for a cheaper contractor is some like developers are now starting to take into consciousness. And for consumers alike, they need to when they're buying homes, they need to look at developers' financials more before the project itself, to go into and see which developers they want to invest their biggest asset. They want to procure the biggest asset class of their investment portfolio. It's going to be the biggest challenge going forward, because you're seeing 25 advertisements in the newspaper, not now, but I'm sure in the near future, again, it will start coming up. So it will be the consumers who will have to see, regardless of the advertisement, they should be developers should be putting their balance sheets in the newspaper saying consumers, I have the money, I will finish the projects, come to me. And for developers also, they have to just develop something. Now it is the cost of doing business. It is hygiene that your building cannot be substandard. It has to be built in a way where we're just thinking about, I have never understood this from the time COVID has started, why people are saying social distancing. People should be saying physical distancing, and socially you have to be together. Today we are in this, we're doing this webinar. We are not socially distancing ourselves. We are physically distancing ourselves, and socially we are together. So we'll have to keep that in mind when we develop our projects, that we have to bring people together socially, but at the same time distance them physically. That is why, I agreed with Murliji's point that, swimming pools are something which are going to be redundant in the future, because today there's COVID, tomorrow something else will come. I do not want to swim in the same water where hundreds of other people are there. So this is small things, small little things we have to keep in our mind. Thank you. Vibhor, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Anuj. Jashi, have I missed anybody? Mr.
No.
Mr. Ravindra Pai, I can't see him.
I don't think so.
All right. So,
Yes, I can't see him.
ladies and gentlemen.
Can I take a few seconds?
Yes.
We are discussing this, and everybody, all of us, be it architects, be it consultants, be it developer and contractors, the industry, what it is going through is not a happy situation to be in. And I would want to take this opportunity. There is a petition going around on WhatsApps and Twitters and mails I would suggest, everybody of us should sign that, and the message should go to the topmost authorities in this country, that they need to take care of us, for us to take care of, many kitchens which run on this, because we are the second largest employers, and the way the migrant laborers have suffered, and if we need them back, we need to treat them well, and this industry has to bounce back. So that we all should get together and appeal to the highest authority. So I would request everybody should sign that petition.
No, thank you, Mr. Jaitley. I think that was a very, very valid point. Ladies and gentlemen, I think all our viewers out there, thank you. A big thanks to you for being such a patient listener to us. And I think we have been surmounted with lots of questions that I can see, but I think we'll come back to you for sure. And I think we started across the entire spectrum of questions, and the panel is unanimously in agreement that there should be a top quality, construction material quality, accuracy, as architect Ravindra said, must be adhered, and Pidilite definitely stands a testimony to that. And I think there has to be a lot of faith and trust in our developers, because this country is in the safe hands of such a lovely nation builders that are there at the moment. We have this 4 incredible developers and 2 very outstanding architects of our country. So we are in safe hands. No shortcuts. Bear in mind, there is no shortcuts. Mr. Murli said, consumer behavior is something very key. Customer delight is very important. And I think every money, every dollar, every rupee that one spends, should get maximum returns. I think that's what the messaging Mr. Murli said. Office space, what he said, there will be a surge of demand. I mean, this asset class will definitely see there will be a surge going. And I think not every work can be done from work from home. And Architect Ravindra Kumar said, save your planet, save Mother Earth, very important. And definitely, if that founds the really basis of the entire discussion, I think if you keep the soil and water together, I think we're not going to lose this war. And Nilabh, can't agree more, strive for excellence. I mean, we are there together. And as I said earlier as well, I think all stakeholders and every unit, everybody has to work in harmony, in tandem together, developers and, MEP consultants, HVAC consultants, designers, project heads, everything work as one cohesive force. And I think one must take care of each of others. There is a lot of time of, that relationship to, cement further in this war to come out together. If you face the loss, stay there, face it together. If you face the win, so share that as well. But he said, Anuji said that, should not be penny wise, pound foolish. You should evaluate. Consumer is becoming more discerning. So bring people socially together, but physically separate. That's the point, what he made at the end. And I think at ITP, we stand together, to believe and, create this thread of discussion where we allow knowledge sharing at the highest level. So ladies and gentlemen, our wonderful editor, as you can see, and my colleague Indrajit there, and lots of people, Rohan and my whole marketing team behind, who have put together to make this webinar happen. And Jashi is going to obviously do a lot of justice by bringing together a great story, a great coverage. And thank you, Mr. Bahadur. You've been really wonderful, and we really look forward and thank Pidilite for that, forward-looking, and they are rightly, how can I forget, they are much ahead in the curve in terms of technology, solve and resolve. I mean, that's what they stand for. I truly salute to that. And thank you very much once again, and look forward for another series. Thank you, and namaste from all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.